Hello everybody, welcome to Monday's edition of the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. What a weekend of racing. Listen, if you watched any form of cycling over the weekend, hit that like button. If you've not done already, hit that subscribe button and you will be blessed with the best season of racing ever. But honestly, what a crazy weekend of racing we've had. Stages 8 and 9 of the Giro d'Italia. We had Tropheo Alcudia. We had Tro-Bro Leon, which we'll be talking about shortly. What a bloody result for us English people and Yorkshire people and people that know Connor Swift. All right? Not my favourite of the Swifts, but he's getting there. A few more wins, and he might be. On top of that, there was a mountain bike race that Tom Pidcock won. Now, I know we don't normally talk about mountain bikes, but favouritism and all that, patriotism and all that. Tom bloody Pidcock ended up winning a race, so we'll talk about that one. He ended up beating Matthew van der Poel. We'll talk about that one. Don't talk about it now, Chris. We'll talk about it later. And any other bits of news that we missed out on over the weekend, I will fill you in. So if you do not know the results of anything that went on over the weekend, by the time this show ends, you'll know everything. Oh, Tour of Hungary as well. Yeah, that went on as well. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a transition, get into news. Hirsch. So let's start with that Tour of Hungary, a 5-day stage race, ended up being won by Damien Housen of Bike Exchange. He finished ahead of Ben Hermans in second place for Israel Startup Nation. Third was Antonio Tibieri from Trek Segafredo. I might have just mullered that name. The final stage was won in a bunch sprint by Trek Segafredo's Edward Turns. Olav Kuj was in second place and Timothy Dupont was in third, but overall victory went to Damon Housen, the Aussie. So the only footage we have from Tropheo Alcudia was seen to be filmed on a potato, but as you can see, well, you can't really, but Andre Greipel ended up taking the victory ahead of Alexander Kristoff. Down in fifth place was our old mate Gabs Coulet. But 2021 seems to be the resurgence year for a lot of these sprinters that we thought had had their time on the world stage. But no, anything Cavendish can do, Greipel can do too. And he ended up taking victory in Tropheo Alcudia, making it his 157th win. Is that going to be the last time we see him on the top of the podium? Hopefully not, but you never blooming know. Next up, over the weekend, we saw round 2 of the mountain bike cross-country World Cup in Nove, Mesto, which is in the Czech Republic. Tom Pidcock has been transferring his road skills back across to his first love, I imagine, that of the mountain bike. And he has been chomping at the heels of Matthew van der Poel for the past couple of weeks now, but eventually he got the better of Matthew van der Poel at the weekend, and he ended up taking his first victory as a professional on mountain bikes. Next up, let's talk Tro-Bro Leon. I'm not even going to pretend to be unbiased about this one. I am absolutely ecstatic that Connor Swift took the victory. Although, when you see the run into the finish, boy is bloody lucky. So coming into the finish, it was actually Connor Swift who looked the strongest. He broke away from the peloton with around 36 kilometers to go. He'd established a breakaway of 2 riders from the additional breakaway as a couple more riders that he'd taken with him. He looked the strongest throughout that final 30k, and the rest of the riders were making him do the majority of the work. When it came down to the sprint, he was prepared to take it on from the front. It was a slight uphill drag, and he started his sprint earlier than everybody else. But luckily for him, he had just enough in reserve to get his hands in the air. But this was the moment he found out that he'd just won the race.
Rider come past. I think we've been given third place for Baptiste Blanca. He's got it. Connor Swift is your winner. Biggest win of his professional career. You can see what it means to the Yorkshireman. Look at that. The RKS Samsic team there to celebrate as well in good number.
Right. It's time to head over to Italy now. Io sono Chris. Wow. Mi piace Giro d'Italia. Come at me. Let's find out what's been happening over in Italy at the Giro d'Italia. Well, stage 8 on Saturday was won by Cofidis, a team you see all the time at the front of a race in a breakaway. But when was the last time you saw them win a stage race? When was the last time you saw them take a victory at the Giro d'Italia? I'll tell you, it was 11 years ago. a bloody long time. But Victor Lafay ended up taking victory from a breakaway. He was 36 seconds ahead of Francesco Gavazzi. Nicholas Arndt was in third place for Team DSM, and in fourth was Nelson Oliveira for Movistar. But that made no difference whatsoever to the GC standings, and heading into stage 9, an uphill finish on gravel no less, we knew the GC contenders were coming out to play. Well, I say they all came out to play, and they did, but in the final K, it was only one man who decided to play ball, and that was Egan Bernal. I said this towards the end of last week's show about Egan Bernal showing his true potential now. Hopefully recovering from that back injury. Hopefully it's not hindering him anymore, and it doesn't look like it's hindering him at the minute, because he just went off like a rocket. Moscon took him up towards, was it 800, 700 metres to go, and then he put it in the old big ring, and he said, "See you later, lads, I'm off skis," and he went. It was Ciccone that tried to keep up with him. He stayed with him for like 7 pedal revs, and then that was it, and Egan Bernal was gone. He was bloody gone. He ended up taking the victory and the first Grand Tour stage win of his career. Now, this guy had obviously won the Tour de France back in 2019, and he did it without a stage victory. And this right here, yesterday, was his first ever Grand Tour victory. That's mental for such a what you think is a dominant force within the GC and Grand Tours. It's crazy. Anyway, he took the victory. He was 7 seconds ahead of Giulio Ciccone. In third place was Alexander Vlasov. Remco Evenepoel took fourth. He had a few problems on the way to the finish, but he recovered well. He only finished 10 seconds down on Egan Bernal. 7 seconds was the gap between him and Ciccone, and Vlasov came over the line at the same time as Ciccone. In fifth was Dan Martin. Solid performance just behind Remco Evenepoel. Damien Caruso was 6th, Roman Bardet was in 7th, Soler was in 8th, Martinez 9th, and rounding out the top 10 was João Almeida after he put in a decent performance, dragging Remco Evenepoel and the rest of the riders up that final climb. Hugh Carthy in 12th, Davide Formolo in 11th, and Emmanuel Buchmann and Simon Yates rounding out the top 40. Well, we may as well go 15, aren't we? Kuhn Bowman was in 15th. And then there was a big gap back. Everybody got that? Good. So it's all to play for heading into stage 10 now. Stage 10 results will either come after this short transition or they won't come at all. If it was an interesting stage, I'm going to be filming it and telling you exactly what happened right now. Did it happen? Well, let's have a transition and find out. Stage 10 of the Giro d'Italia, one day prior to the rest day, was a transitional, lumpy stage. Nothing major in it. A 4th cat climb coming towards the final third of the stage. But after that, it was really just a downhill run into the finish. Could Bora Hansgrohe do what they tried to do in the first week? You knew that they were going to try and set something up for Peter Sagan. And right on cue, on that 4th cat climb, this is when they started to apply that pressure to the rest of the peloton. Eventually, a few riders would get shelled out the back, one of the biggest names being Giacomo Nizzolo. He wouldn't make it to the finish, and Bora were on a mission heading towards the finish with 15 kilometres to go. They still had riders on the front, working with Alpecin Fenix and also Israel Startup Nation. But coming into that final K&a-half, you could still see the Bora Hansgrohe still had riders on the front working for Peter Sagan. The rest of the teams were just sat in there ready to try and pick up the pieces if all else failed. But this time round, they timed it to absolute perfection. Peter Sagan took the victory ahead of Fernando Gaviria. The boys did good. The Bora Hansgrohe train paid off, and Peter Sagan took the victory. So you can see there's the results. Peter Sagan in first place. Fernando Gaviria was in second, and in third place, Davide Chimolaya. That's Chimolaya. Just giving it an extra bit of Zuzana. If you've enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you've not done already. If you've disliked the video for whatever reason, hit that dislike button. Above all, make sure you have an amazing day, whatever you're doing. Remember, positivity is the key to life and happiness. See you on the next one.